It's been nearly 30 years since Subaru first introduced the Forester nameplate to the States. Remember, when this vehicle came out back in 1997, it was one of the very first crossover SUVs, coming out right around the same time frame as the Toyota RAV4 and Honda CR-V. Now, since then, the Forester has grown to become one of the best-selling Subaru nameplates of all time here in the States. And for 2025, we are seeing an all-new 6th generation model. This is a comprehensive redesign, Subaru says. It has an all-new exterior design. It has an all-new interior with much better technology. And Subaru generally says they've really improved the tech and then the refinement for this all-new 6th generation model. So today we're actually out here in beautiful Missoula, Montana to finally get behind the wheel of the 2025 Forester. And the big question I want to answer, for those of you who are looking for a compact mainstream SUV and you plan to do more outdoorsy kind of activities, has Subaru made enough changes to the new model to keep this among the best in the segment? Stay tuned to find out. So like I said, the Subaru Forester has constantly been one of the best-selling Subaru models here in the US. So all-new version is a pretty big deal for Subaru. But before we start talking about the exterior styling changes, I thought I'd pop the hood and show you guys what's powering this thing. Now, this is where, on paper, the Forester looks like Subaru kind of played it safe, but the company claims the 2.5-liter gasoline direct injection Boxer Flat 4 has been extensively revised in terms of efficiency, in terms of parts, in terms of engine mounts, and in terms of refinement. Now, the power figures for the engine are now 180 horsepower. That's actually a reduction of 2 horsepower compared to the previous generation, but you do get a little bit more torque, 178 foot-pounds of torque. That's an extra 2 pound-feet of torque. And Subaru also says you get that torque figure realized at around 3,400 RPM versus like 5,200 RPM. So they've retuned the engine so it delivers more low-end torque at a lower RPM. So that should give it better drivability when you're actually out on the road. We'll get it out on the road later on. We'll talk about that. It also has a revised version of the company's Lineartronic Xtronic CVT transmission. So the CVT is actually a variation of the CVT that's in the Wilderness trim, which, by the way, if you guys want a Wilderness Forester, the company says they're working on a new version. You can get the old Wilderness for a little bit longer. It'll carry on alongside the all-new 2025 model year. Now, fuel economy for this engine is the same as last year, 26 in the city, 33 on the highway, around 29 combined. You have a 16.6 gallon fuel tank, and because of that larger fuel tank, Subaru says you'll be able to do between 450 to over 500 miles of range, depending, of course, on your driving characteristics. It's among the most fuel efficient that you're gonna find that's a non-hybrid compact SUV. It's a Subaru, so it comes standard, of course, with the company's latest version of their symmetrical all-wheel drive system. It's a mechanical full-time all-wheel drive system, which is different versus the part-time systems that you find in most of its rivals. And it also includes the latest version of Subaru's xDrive. We'll try that out, of course, when we get this out on the road. In terms of the 0 to 60 time, Subaru doesn't quote a 0 to 60 time. We'll test it out here in Montana, although we are at around 4,000 feet above sea level, so it's going to affect our actual performance. If you plan to tow, the Forester will tow a maximum 1,500 pounds, and as this car sits, it weighs in at just over 3,600 pounds. It's about 50 pounds heavier versus the previous generation. That's because of all the additional sound deadening materials that went into improving the refinement of this car. Closing the hood, let's go ahead and talk about the rest of the exterior styling. Now, first of all, you can see the front fascia of the new Forester has kind of like a new corporate look for Subaru, and the hexagonal grille here has been enlarged. You can see this touring trim that I'm showing you is painted in horizon blue. It looks good with the gloss black accents. You can see the Subaru logo here has also been updated. That's the radar sensor back there for the adaptive cruise. You also have a front camera. There's now a full 360-degree camera for the first time ever on the Forester. There's some silver accents. There's some unpainted accents here. There's some actual venting, of course, that allows for air to get past to cool the engine. And you can see the headlights. All Forester models come standard with the company's steering responsive full LED headlights. You can see it also includes an LED daytime running light, LED turn signal, and you also have those LED fog lights at the bottom of the fascia, which is a nice touch. A lot of vehicles in this segment have been removing the LED fog lights. And it's nice to see that Subaru has kept that. You can see it kind of reminds me a little bit of a combination of like a Subaru Ascent mixed in with maybe a Subaru Outback. So let me know in the comment section below if you guys like the design of this car. If you look at different trims, you may have a slightly different finish to the grille. I wish that Subaru would come back and offer another turbo engine. They weren't, again, ready to talk about that, but you can get a hybrid supposedly that's coming next year. although Subaru again didn't give us any additional details. Now, if you look up there in the windshield, you can see there are 3 cameras. So that's part of the standard Subaru EyeSight driver assistance technology. The middle camera is a new mono stereo camera that is included for the redesign. It allows, again, for more detailed view and just better precision of the Subaru EyeSight system. So that's, again, a new feature for 2025. But overall, you can see it's still instantly recognizable as a Forester. It's built on the same Subaru global product architecture. The torsional rigidity, the company says, has improved by about 10%, and they've just added a lot more, like twice as much structural adhesive and sound deadening materials. Now, moving around the side profile, you can see it's a compact mainstream SUV. So you're looking at the same wheelbase as before, 105.1 inches long. Its overall length is a little bit longer, 183.3 inches. It's also around 72 inches wide, about a half an inch wider. It's about a half an inch longer as well. But the one thing I wish Subaru had done, if you look at the side profile, I kind of wish that they extended the wheelbase, because you can see the rear overhang for me is a little bit too long. It makes the car look a little ungainly. I mean, Subaru is trying to make the Forester look a little bit more premium, a little bit more upscale, but I think it still looks a little bit frumpy, especially when you look at the side profile. Now, looking at the wheels, you can see this touring grade that I'm showing you has a unique 19-inch wheel, which I believe is a new larger wheel this year. I think previously it topped out at around 18. You can see it's riding on a 235 by 50 R19 Bridgestone Turenza all-season tire. It also has a 12.4-inch front disc rotor at the front, 11.9 at the rear. You have an all-independent suspension, and this car still has around 8.7 inches of ground clearance, which puts it among the best in the segment. If you guys remember the old Wilderness, or you can still get a 2024 Wilderness, that has around 9.2, so I suspect Subaru will kind of do the same thing for the new generation Wilderness. You can see you have some unpainted cladding along the side, some actual functional vents that you also can see there in the fender trim, which is nice. But overall, you can see the Touring also includes these black painted side mirrors. I actually kind of wish that Subaru had gone with a satin finish. Previously, if you guys go for a Touring Subaru, it comes with a satin finish mirror, so I'm not entirely sure why they're going to the gloss black. There's also an integrated turn signal. There's a camera mounted underneath here, again, for the full 360 camera that gives you kind of like an aerial perimeter scan, which is a new feature. We'll talk about that later in the interior. All versions of the Forester also will come with roof rails. You'll either get the taller roof rails or this more aerodynamic low profile roof rails. Even on the base version, you can also see there's a panoramic style sunroof up here, which is a nice touch. If you guys go for the premium trims, I believe, and up, you'll get that pano style roof, which is, again, not available on some of the Forester's competitors. Over here, you can see there's this badge here that lets everybody know you have symmetrical all-wheel drive as standard. I don't particularly love the placement of this. It looks a little bit like an afterthought, but again, that's just my personal preference. Some of you will probably just like the fact that it just advertises you have a Subaru with all-wheel drive. Now, looking at the rear, the design again looks very different versus the previous generation, but at the same time, it's kind of giving me a little bit of that wagon vibes that you got from the first generation of the Forester. You can see it spells out Forester boldly at the back. You have black accented badges for Subaru, and then there's a touring badge here to let everybody know that you've got the most expensive version of the Forester. You can see there's a integrated rear spoiler back here. You have a rear window wiper, and then there's also a digital camera review mirror in this vehicle, which is, again, a new feature for 2025 on the higher trims. Down here on the lower rear bumper, you can see there's a good amount of cladding, but it's not overdone like in something like the Subaru Outback, for example. There's just a single chrome exhaust tip over here on the passenger side. Over there, it almost looks like there's a cutout if you wanted to do a dual system. So perhaps Subaru might do that for an upgraded engine, the hybrid perhaps. So again, we don't have any updates from that. You can see the taillights, they are a combination of LED and incandescent. So the brake lights are LED, but the turn signal is incandescent. I kind of wish that Subaru had just kept it consistent there. And then in terms of the cargo space, this is an area where the Forester's always been extremely strong. You get a maximum of 29.6 cubic feet of space. And then Subaru says the distance between the wheel arches back here, so from here to there, I'll flip that up so you can see it, is around 43.3 inches. It's among the widest in the segment. It still has among the widest openings that you're going to find in the segment, which is also a nice touch. Underneath here, you can see there is a space for, I believe, a temporary spare tire. Subaru typically includes that. If you fold down the second row seats, it expands it out to around 74.4 cubic feet. That number is identical to the previous generation Forester if you didn't have the panoramic sunroof, but now that number is included with the pano roof, so the company technically did increase the cargo capacity, which is fantastic because the old Forester was already among the most practical that you would find in the segment. So moving on to the interior of the all-new 6th generation Forester. As you guys saw, the exterior definitely looks different, and this is where the interior of the new Forester may look pretty familiar, especially if you guys have been in some of the most recent Subaru products. Let me first start by showing you guys the door panel. You can see this touring grade has a really nice touring brown two-tone black combination leather interior. You can see the upper door panel has a nice soft touch injection molded plastic. There's some brown leather here with this new ultra suede material with contrasting stitching. It's nice and padded over here with this interesting kind of rubberized texture in the actual armrest pad. There's some piano black plastic trim. You have one touch up down for the two front windows, however not for the rear. The window controls, they look pretty much like the previous generation, which is the same. You have a chrome door handle, and then the touring grade also is the only trim to give you two-person memory seats, which is nice. Down here you have hard touch plastic materials, some storage, and then you also get the upgraded Harman Kardon premium stereo system included on this trim. Looking at the seats, you can see these seats are exclusive to the touring grade. They are perforated. The seats are also heated, and for the first time ever on a Forester, they're also ventilated, which is only included on the touring grade. This driver's seat adjusts in 10 different ways. The passenger side adjusts in 8 different ways. Love the ultra suede and the two-tone brown and black leather combination. It definitely gives the Forester a more upscale touch, so it's nice that you don't have to get like an Outback or an Ascent to finally get cooled seats on something a little bit more affordable. Now, getting inside, you can see with 8.7 inches of ground clearance, this vehicle has a nice, easy step-in height. As I get in and shut the door, the door has a relatively solid sounding thunk. This kind of reminds me again of other Subaru products because it's built on the same architecture. Now, looking at the key fob, you can see here is the current Subaru Intelligent Access key. It's a pretty nice size. It looks good. It has your usual buttons here for lock, unlock, power liftgate, and panic function. Subaru still does not offer a phone as a key, but what's nice is for 2025, every Forester trim, even the base, comes with the company's push button start and intelligent access key. You had to previously get the premium trim to get it. Now Subaru has included it on even the base trim, so turn the vehicle on. You can hear it has a traditional starter noise, and that's because this is not a hybrid or a mild hybrid. But again, the company keeps stressing that a hybrid is coming in about a year, but we still don't have any additional details on that hybrid powertrain just yet. Now, looking at the rest of this dashboard interior layout, you can see it looks very identical to the Outback, to the Crosstrek, to the WRX even. And that's because most versions of the Forester, if you guys go for a premium and up trim, you'll have the 11.6-inch Subaru Starlink infotainment system. You can see it's a nice tablet style, portrait style orientation. And it just, it's a pretty good size screen. If you guys go for the base version, it'll give you two 7-inch displays, which I don't have a base version here to show you guys, but most people are going to tend to choose this layout anyways. You can see the instrument panel also has a combination of like a 3.5-inch digital screen in the center with 2 analog dials. It's starting to look a little dated. A lot of competitors have gone to a full digital display, but Subaru is one of the few holdouts, so I'm wondering when the company is eventually going to show us an actual full digital display. The steering wheel, you can see, is practically the same steering wheel that's in the Crosstrek. For example, you have paddles on the wheel to control the CVT, which has now 8 virtual ratios versus 7. You have a heated steering wheel as well that's only included on the touring grade. You have these drive mode selector buttons here for your SI drive. There's an intelligent, which is normal, and then a sport mode. You have your volume control, your eyesight controls. The steering wheel itself has a manual tilt telescoping adjustment, which offers a good amount of adjustability and range. The horn, it sounds really puny, so don't love the sound of the horn, but that's something you could change in the aftermarket. No heads-up display on this trim. Subaru doesn't offer a heads-up display in general on the Forester. And then you can see in terms of the upper dash material, sadly, this area here is hard-touch plastic over the instrument panel hood, but if you look at this area, it is a more padded area. This is also hard-touch plastic. The driver focus camera is located here. That's exclusive to the touring grade, where it basically watches my face. There's also a new feature on this car called emergency auto or emergency brake. So if I have the adaptive cruise control on, if you have a touring trim, it also will use the driver focus. So if I am not paying attention and I don't have my hands on the wheel, the car will start to notify you. It'll start to beep. If you don't respond to that, it'll actually bring the vehicle down to a complete stop and turn the hazards on and then call emergency services. That's in case somebody like passes out or falls asleep while they're driving with the adaptive cruise control on. This is the first Subaru model to get that feature, which again is a great safety touch. Subaru is very much known for wanting to throw in all of the safety features, of course. Now over here you can see there's a padded area here with some faux cross stitching, which is definitely nice. This kind of has like a interesting hexagonal texture in it, which looks good. You have kind of like this bronzy, metallic-y metal look trim here, which is also exclusive to the touring grade, which is nice. This infotainment system, you can see, includes Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. It's also wireless, so this is the first Forester to get wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. If you guys go for the bigger screen, it'll be standard. The 7-inch displays, the two 7-inch displays will have a wired connection for Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. You can see there's your X mode controls there, where it's now in the screen, where you can go into a snow, dirt, a normal, and then a deep mud and snow. I believe the upcoming wilderness trim will also include the dual X mode function. This only has the single X mode. I really actually like the way the system is laid out. So at the top here, you have like this kind of interchangeable screen where you can put different information. You have this screen here to show your CarPlay and Android Auto functionality. And then you can also go back to the actual regular display here. There is a factory embedded GPS that I believe is still navigation by TomTom. Definitely looks pretty old and dated, but it gets the job done. Most of you, again, are probably going to end up using the CarPlay function anyways. Down here, you have your functional or your climate controls, which are always down here at the bottom. So they don't actually change. And you also have actual volume and tuning knobs and buttons here for the temperature. Your heated and cooled seat functions are located in the screen here, which again, first Forester to get cooled seats, which is nice. You can also click that and you can bring up more climate functions. Dual zone automatic temperature control is actually standard even on the base version. So again, Subaru is throwing in a lot of technology, a lot more standard equipment included in even that base trim, which is nice. If I put the vehicle into reverse, you can see there's your full 360 camera. First Subaru Forester to get the full 360 camera. The graphics and resolution actually looks pretty good. It includes trajectory and front and rear parking sensors. You also have rear automatic cross traffic braking. So if it senses somebody is coming and you're backing up, it'll hit the brakes for you. Push that button here, you can start changing the different views. You can go do a top-down view or the split screen view. And if I push this button here, you can see it gives you kind of like an aerial view scan around the vehicle. I don't really know if that's particularly useful. It kind of reminds me of Toyota's system. The graphics don't look fantastic, but again, it's nice to see Subaru finally throwing in some decent technology in this car, considering you know, the previous generation was lacking on that. Now you can see there's a big wireless phone charging pad as well. You get that if you guys at least go for the premium trims and up. You have two USB charge ports there, an A and a C, along with an aux port. The USB charger is actually big enough to hold my iPhone 14 Pro Max, which is nice. You have some piano black plastic here, some more of that brown leather with the stitching and the kind of textured material. You have a traditional shifter for the CVT with a manual mode here, or you can also access it from the paddle shifters here, which is nice. You have an electronic parking brake here, two cup holders, which is nice. There are a couple of Easter eggs that you'll find in the car. So you can see here, there's like a little bit of a topography of mountain ranges over there. There's also a few more. If you start looking around the car, there's a nice padded center console. Open that up, you can see it's a relatively deep amount of storage. And it's nice that it's covered as well. And I think that people are going to be happy with that. You can see above me, there's a big panoramic sunroof. So it also lets in a ton of light. Actually, I think that this is not tinted enough. It was kind of a problem that I complained about in the previous generation. I think they need to make this a little bit darker tinted. It's nice because it lets in light, but now it's just a little bit too much light, so I'll close that up. You can also open it up and you can vent it, which is nice. You have LED map lighting in here, so it's nice that Subaru includes the LED map lighting now as standard. Before, you had to like add it as an option package or an accessory from the dealer. You can see there's also that digital camera rearview mirror. If you don't like that, you can go back to a standard mirror. This is included on the touring grade as well, which is a nice touch. And then over here in the glove box, you can see, open it up. It's a bin style, it's damped, not lined with felt, but it offers a decent amount of storage. So overall, the interior is very familiar for those of you who know Subarus, but obviously the company has increased the amount of tech and content in this car. I just think it's a little bit of a missed opportunity for Subaru to not give us a fully digital display. And I also think that this look here is starting to look a little bit dated and familiar, because remember, this layout was first introduced back in 2019 when the all-new Outback came out. So one of the reasons that makes the Forester so popular with families is the amount of space that you get in the second row. So with the dimensions pretty much unchanged, you have the same amount of rear seat legroom. Subaru says it's around 39.4 inches. That's among the best in the segment. That's a solid 2 inches more versus something like a Toyota RAV4. And you can see the two-tone contrasting seat design carries over back here into the touring grade, which is nice. You can also, of course, fold this seat down. If you fold this down, it almost creates a completely flat load floor, which is nice. Subaru, of course, offers a lot of accessories for doggies and just having these covers, seat covers, if you plan to put your dog in this vehicle. The one thing I wish the seat does is it doesn't recline. It doesn't offer a recline function. You can find that in some competitors, but let me go ahead and get back here and show you guys the space. Now, this is pretty much where I'd have the seat to drive in my driving position. And at 5'7", you can see there's just a ton of space back here. There's a ton of leg room where I can easily stretch out. The floor is not completely flat though, but Again, this is among the best in the segment. You do also have features here like rear seat climate control, vents, you have 2 USB charging ports, you have 2 level heated seats. That's of course included on this touring grade. And then Subaru gives you kind of dual level stacked storage pockets in each of the front seats. I can also kind of sit back here, cross my legs very comfortably, which is a nice touch. In terms of the headroom space, you can see for somebody my height, I'll sit a little more upright. I'd say there's a good solid couple inches of additional headroom. So maybe if you're over 6 feet, it could feel a little bit tight, but this is still a pretty nice amount of space. The door panel materials sadly are hard touch plastic back here, so it's downgraded versus the front. You do still have that really nice amount of ultra suede with the brown leather. Window controls, they are not one touch, like I said, but they have that high quality finish. You have a little bit of storage here in the door pocket. It would be nice to see some manual sunshades. That's something Subaru offers on the Ascent, but sadly not here on the Forester. And then if you fold this down, you can see there's an armrest that gives you 2 cup holders. I actually like the piano black plastic and silver trim along the cup holders, which kind of makes it feel a little bit nicer. But overall, if you're looking for a big back seat to put a car seat back here, or just for your taller friends, the Forester has among the biggest back seats in its class. So currently the Subaru Forester is the 3rd best-selling model in the Subaru portfolio, so I bet you a lot of you are probably super curious about how this new version drives. We are starting off, of course, in this touring grade, which is the top-of-the-line model. If you guys are interested in seeing other trims, be sure to click in the link in the description below. We'll plan to do a separate video showing the other trims, but we have a new 4-cylinder engine. It's new, but it's also kind of the same. Subaru says 180 horsepower, so let's go ahead and see what we can get 0 to 60 wise. We are sitting at around 3,800 feet above sea level. We'll switch the drive mode here into sport, and then we'll go ahead and brake torque it. Definitely feels a little sluggish off the line, but yes, we got 10.17 seconds. So I've got Rob next to me sitting shotgun, and he's adding so much weight, making this car so slow. But remember, we are at almost a mile above sea level, so that is going to significantly slow down the acceleration of a naturally aspirated engine like this. I'd say when we get one back home at sea level, it's probably going to be in the mid 8-second range, which I know is not fast. The Forester has not been known as being one of the quicker options ever since the 4th generation was out with the XT, the turbocharged model. So it gets me super excited to drive the hybrid version. Again, most people who drive Foresters don't particularly care about fast 0 to 60 times. I do it for demonstration purposes. But again, I'd say at sea level, this car would probably be in the mid to upper 8-second range, but here at elevation, it's a little over 10 seconds, so it's not the fastest SUV. Now, what is a big improvement Subaru at least claims is the refinement of this engine. So they have redone the engine mounts, they've redone the cooling, they've redone some of the internals to make the engine have less friction. It'll be also more fuel efficient, it'll be quieter, and it also has an updated version of the Lineartronic or Xtronic CVT. Lineartronic, I keep calling it. Well, actually, it's Lineartronic. Xtronic is Nissan. Keep mixing those two up. It essentially now has 8 virtual ratios. You can take control of that via the paddles here. And you know what? I have to say, the paddles work really well at just creating a fake gear. Put my foot down here, you can see it's kind of a slow revving engine, but it actually does feel like it actually shifts. So that's kind of a really good job there. Subaru says they've widened the ratio spread to improve the performance and the fuel efficiency. And I will say that the engine is noticeably quieter. I mean, if I have it in sport mode now, if I put my foot down here, again, it feels slow, but I don't feel much in terms of vibration through the steering wheel, through the pedals, through the floorboards. So that's kind of a nice touch that it feels a lot more refined now. And I think that's going to do wonders for people who are, looking to replace their old Forester. It's just going to feel a lot smoother and a lot more upscale. Now there's nobody behind me. I just want to do another 0 to 60 test here. This time I won't brake torque it, we'll just floor it. Of course, the start-stop had to kick in at that moment.
Turn the AC off. More power, 5 more horsepower.
All right, still holds it at, okay, that's consistent there, 10.15. That's on a completely flat level. So again, she's not fast, but she's also a little slow, but we're slow because we're at almost a mile above sea level. So I'm done doing 0 to 60 testing, but let's go ahead and talk about the other aspects of this car, because most people, again, are just going to use this as their daily driver. They want to know how's the vehicle drive in terms of just a comfortable daily driver. And this is where the Forester really excels. The greenhouse of the vehicle hasn't really changed, so you still have big windshield, big side windows. You also have decent side view mirrors and a good view out of the front, the sides, out of the rear. That digital camera mirror also does a great job of showing you exactly what's behind there in a high definition display. And if you guys don't like that, if I go to the standard mirror, the boxy square shape of this car allows you to see out of the back perfectly well, which is definitely nice. The steering of this car is now the dual pinion power rack and pinion steering from the WRX, so it's a little bit more precise. It's a little bit sportier feeling. Does it actually feel sportier in general? I mean, it definitely is quick in its precision, and I think that it's just very easy and competent to drive. You can see out of the car really nicely. The ride quality in the Forester is also excellent. This vehicle, even though we're on these bigger 19-inch wheels, the Forester just kind of glides over road imperfections. It has a really nice plush ride quality. It definitely feels softly sprung, which I think is fine for the intended buyer for this vehicle. The seats on this car also have been redesigned, so Subaru says the padding and the actual shape of the seat is a little bit different. So it gives you a little bit better lateral support and rigidity when you're kind of going through corners. And I have to say, these seats for the touring grade with the Ultra Suede, they're grippy, they feel nice, the heated function works well. It's a little cold out here, so I can't try out the cooled function, but Subaru's cooled seats tend to be fairly nice, which is a good touch. But overall, just driving the Forester, it feels pretty identical to the previous generation, just, again, smoother, it's quieter, there's a lot less noise in this car from the engine making less noise. This road isn't the smoothest, so I am hearing some road noise come through, but I definitely don't hear much in terms of wind noise. But what's really impressive is just how much less buzzy and, thrashy sounding the engine is for this vehicle. It's less versus the previous generation. I think people are going to appreciate that, but again, I really wish Subaru had the hybrid available now at launch, or at least they had some specs to talk about, because I do think the hybrid is probably what keeps people from buying the Subaru. That's precisely why the RAV4 hybrid is the best selling. That's precisely why Honda has gone 50% all in on hybrids for the CR-V lineup, and 50% of their sales are hybrids. So Subaru really, they need that hybrid powertrain badly. But again, I think what I'm noticing with the Forester, if you guys don't want a hybrid powertrain, you don't want the complexity, you don't want the added cost, the base 2.5 liter engine in this car, I'd say is probably better versus the gas-only engines that you'll find in the RAV4 and in the CR-V. Now, of course, the Honda does have a turbo engine. Would love to see Subaru do their 2.4 liter turbo in this car. I don't think that's going to happen, to be honest, because the take rate for the old 4th generation Forester XT just wasn't high enough for Subaru to justify the cost. But overall, out here on the road and this beautiful scenery here in Montana, the Forester excels. So if you plan to use this as a road trip vehicle, it'll get excellent fuel efficiency. I don't have final fuel economy figures right now because, again, this is a very early media drive. The car is only showing 180 miles of range, so I'll have to retest an actual fuel economy test when I get one back home for a week to test. Subaru, again, says this should have among the best range in the segment. And the improvements in the eyesight driver assistance in this car also makes the vehicle a lot easier to drive on those longer trips where you can actually do a little bit of hands-free driving. It's not full hands-free for like hundreds of miles like a Cadillac Super Cruise or GM Super Cruise, for example, but I think, considering Subaru's positioning in the mainstream segment, there's a lot to like about this new Forester, and Subaru essentially has taken everything we like about the previous generation, added that additional, upgrades in technology and refinement, and I think that's going to really appease a lot of people, especially, current Forester owners, and it's also going to attract possibly conquest buyers to trade in their CR-V or RAV. So in that regard, I think Subaru did a pretty good job with this new Forester. So during the presentation of the new Forester, Subaru had mentioned that up to 20% of Forester owners actually do camping, hiking, outdoorsy things. So a backdrop like this here in beautiful Montana with the river in the background, this beautiful hiking trail, all the woods, this is a perfect place to kind of launch the new 2025 Subaru Forester. And after spending some time driving this all-new 6th generation version, I am relatively impressed with what Subaru is doing here. Clearly, the company wanted to play it safe with the Forester. I mean, this vehicle in general sold around 152,000 100,000 models or units last year in 2023, making this the third best-selling Subaru in the North American portfolio. So clearly the company wanted to play it safe to not alienate typical Forester buyers, but at the same time, they've added a nice healthy dosage of refinement to this vehicle, because as you guys saw out on the road where most people are going to drive the new Forester, the refinement of this vehicle is nice. I mean, it's a lot quieter on the inside. There's less vibrations, there's less noise coming from the engine. I'm still not in love with the 2.5 liter engine. While it is relatively smooth and it gets good fuel efficiency on paper for just a gas-only non-hybrid engine, as you guys saw, the 0 to 60 time was definitely disappointing, but we are also at almost a mile above sea level. So once I get one back home to test, we'll be able to see what it actually does in real-world conditions. Obviously, people don't buy a Forester to go drag racing, but that's kind of a missed opportunity for Subaru to launch this vehicle with the hybrid powertrain, to offer the turbocharged engine once again. Because if you guys remember our reviews of like the Outback XT with the turbo engine, it's among the quickest accelerating vehicles in the segment. So the Forester, sadly, it is still among the slowest, but that's not the point of these vehicles. As you guys saw, the seats on this vehicle are much more comfortable. The interior has a more premium vibe. While we have seen the tech in this car before, it's nice to finally see wireless Apple CarPlay, the bigger 11.6-inch display, all the standard equipment, because if you guys are looking at the fully loaded version here, like this Touring, you can finally get things like the 360 camera, the heated and cooled seats, the heated rear seats. All of those features I think are, you know, tech and premium upgrades that buyers want. But of course, when you add in those options, it's going to increase the price of the new Forester. And this is where we're going to talk about the pricing and the availability, because if you're looking to get your hands on the new Forester, this vehicle is going to start at $29,695. That represents about a $2,600 increase in the base price compared to last year's model. Now, Subaru was quick to point out you have a lot more standard equipment like alloy wheels, roof rails, the push button start with intelligent access. That's all standard now, as opposed to the previous generation, which had steel wheels and it didn't have the push button start. If you guys want to go to a premium trim, that's what accounts for most of the Forester sales. That's going to start at around $31,600, so just under $32,000. The sport trim is around $35,000. A limited is around $1,500 more. If you want everything on this fully loaded Touring grade, this is where things definitely start to get a little more expensive. The Touring is going to start at around $39,995 plus a $1,395 destination. All in, this particular one that I'm showing you here is around $41,390. So just under $42,000 is certainly Outback money, but at the same time, if you're looking at a fully loaded version like of a RAV4 or a CRV, they're also going to be over $40,000. Subaru was also quick to point out that if you're comparing the base Forester with a base all-wheel drive RAV4 and CRV, the Forester is around $400 to $800 cheaper, and it also comes with more equipment. So there's a ton of value baked into this car, but really for me, what's holding the Subaru Forester back from being my, top recommended option is the lack of a hybrid. So a hybrid model again is coming in the next year. So my recommendation, if you guys don't care about the fuel efficiency, put one of these on your list. But if you're also, that's important to you, you could also just wait a year or also check out the Toyota RAV4 Hybrid. But if you guys are looking for a well-rounded compact SUV, the redesigned Subaru Forester is certainly worth a look, especially in this ultra-competitive compact SUV space. With all that said, hope you guys have enjoyed my full overview on the fully redesigned 2025 Subaru Forester in this top-of-the-line Touring trim. If you're also looking to see the latest cars I'm testing, be sure to follow me on Instagram at redline_reviews, like us on Facebook, and as always, guys, please keep subscribing to the Redline Reviews YouTube channel for all the latest reviews. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next video.